Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the DFS Army Kill Shot Podcast. I'm Kyle Marley. With me is my co-host, MonkMMAtics, and we're going to break down this UFC Charlotte card for you guys today. It's only a two-man pod, so it should be a shorter one this week. But how you doing this week, Monk, and how are you feeling about this Charlotte card?
Doing pretty well. Still getting settled in down here in Texas, but I think we're finishing that up, so it's looking pretty good. Got my little studio space going still. As far as the card, it seems like it's not great on paper, but if you think that, go look at next week's card and then come back to me. So this one's actually not too bad. I think we got some good spots to choose.
Oh, man, I have not looked ahead yet, so I'm not excited to do that now.
Brutal.
So I guess we'll just focus in the moment. Hopefully we can win on this card. If we can win on this one, it'll make next week easier to study for. So
yep.
Let's get right into it. We have, the line's flipped on this one. We have Tainara Lisboa, newcomer, at -115 against Jessica Rose Clark at -105. Man, I don't really understand the line movement on this. Jessica Rose Clark was the favorite, and it's just been moving in Lisboa's side, the last couple days. And I just haven't seen enough from this girl to warrant it. There was only like 2 MMA fights out there that I could find. She is a Muay Thai fighter. She definitely looks like she has power. Her striking looks legit. She throws big power in every shot that she throws, but that's not as much of a worry, in my opinion, on Jessica Rose Clark fights as it would be a better grappler going against her. I think if Jessica Rose Clark can have the grappling advantage, which she should, in my opinion, going against a Muay Thai fighter, then I think this is Jessica Rose Clark's fight to lose here. So I'm going to pick Jessica Rose Clark to go out there, and I think she could win all 3 rounds with wrestling. But I just, from what I saw on this Lisboa's ground game, she was taken down once or twice by Norma Dumont. This was a long time ago, but she was choked out really quick. Like, she just didn't look like she wanted to be on the ground at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and go with the well-rounded veteran in this one and take Jessica Rose Clark. But who do you like in this curtain jerker, Monk?
Unfortunately, I think I'm on the same side as you. And I say, unfortunately, shout out to Joe in the chat. And yeah, man, his comment is not, it doesn't make me happy that I'm going to be backing Jessica Rose Clark here. But I think this is a get-right spot. This is kind of similar to the Amarim Sam Hughes fight, if you want to make a comparison, a little comp there. We're kind of throwing the veteran out the window for the new up-and-comer that has, a couple of wins. She's only got 7 fights. Rose Clark has more losses than Tainara has total fights in her pro career. So the first thing I did when I saw JRC, I looked at Lisboa, see if she had any submission wins. She does. So immediately I was on the Lisboa side. She has 2 of them. But she also has a submission loss. One of these women is getting subbed, is my opinion, is what I'm trying to say. I think this is actually could be a sneaky fight for DraftKings. I don't think it goes all 3. One of these women is going to get their shoulder separated, going to get their arm taken, going to get their knee barred, if you will. So I just think this one could end in the first or second. I'm leaning with the veteran Clark here, but I'm not confident. But I'm hoping to get some leverage by just rostering these women a little bit more than usual. I'll be on more Clark, though.
Yeah, and with the line movement, you would expect Clark's ownership to be lower than it would have, a couple days ago. So I'm cool getting leverage there as well. But I also want some Lisboa exposure because people just apparently probably know more than I do about this girl, and that's why the line is moving in that way. So I'll trust their word and Joe's word. 2-time world Muay Thai champion. Yeah, she does look good on the feet.
Yeah.
Just what happens if she's taken down is my worry. But I'll get some exposure to her as a hedge as well. But I would guess with the line movement, I'll probably be underweight to the newcomer in this one. Give me JRC to get back on track.
Yeah, she could get pieced up, Joe. The last thing I'll say is the strength of schedule for Lisboa is terrible. One of the worst we've seen in a couple weeks. Her last 5 opponents pro record 7-9. So not really much to write home about.
Yeah, true. But yeah, if this is a striking match, I would agree. Rose Clark probably gets pieced up. All right, next one on the card, we have Gabe Green, -135 against Brian Battle, +110. You have a lean in this one, Monk?
I'm kind of leaning the green side, to be honest. Brian Battle, I don't really have enough to go off of. I mean, he does have 4 fights, 2 of them only at welterweight. One was at like 40 seconds. He head kicked Takashi Sato. And the other fight at welterweight, he got absolutely dominated by Renat Fakhretdinov. I mean, this is a 15-minute fight. Most of it, I think 14 minutes of control time went to Renat, maybe more. He controlled 94.5% of the fight. Brian Battle could not do anything. So, quite simply put, if Gabe Green can land a takedown, I think he's got a good shot. He scores almost half a point per minute in takedowns and control time, which I do like. Scores 98 per win. Brian Battle, his stats you kind of have to throw out in the division. Like I said, his one win, he put up 120, but he got a quick win bonus over Sato with a head kick there. So I think this is going to be a tough fight. Green is giving up, I believe, 3 inches of height, 4 inches of reach. So that could be tough, especially the way Battle fights lately. But if Green can get inside and get him down, I think this is a decent spot here. And he could score okay for DraftKings if he can keep Battle down. If Green employs a ground game wrestling some type of game, I'm trying to say, he should be able to score very well against Battle.
Yeah, I'm on the Green side as well. I just think he's the better striker. I think he's the better wrestler, probably the better grappler as well. So I definitely have to lean with him, but I do think it's close. And you mentioned Battle's going to be the taller, longer fighter. He's also fighting at home in Charlotte here, which could help sway the judges in a close fight. So that's kind of my worry, but I do think if this was anywhere else, I would make Green even more of a favorite just because I hate these home crowds and in judges. It's the judges that I hate. I hate the judges. They just don't know what they're watching. But if the home crowd is yelling every single time that Battle is doing something, the judges could definitely be swayed with that. So it's always in the back of my mind, but I do think Green's the more talented fighter. I think he could score well if he goes out there and wrestles heavily or gets a finish, of course. So I'm going to be on the Green side. I doubt I get too much Battle. It depends on how many lineups I make, but if I'm making my usual 10 to 20 this week, then I might end up fading Battle and just hoping that Green can pull it out.
I agree.
Next one on the card, we do have, maybe my favorite fade on the card. We have Jiyeon Kim minus 190 against Mandy Bohm plus 155. This one's really expected to go the distance, almost 3-1, that it should go the distance, and I can't really argue with that. I think Kim is the better striker. Bohm might have a wrestling edge here. We haven't seen it in the UFC, but on the regional scene, she had some success on the ground. So I think that would be her path to victory, is getting some takedowns, maybe winning 2 rounds on the scorecards, which could score okay as an underdog. But I think Kim keeps this standing long enough to win 2 or all 3 rounds. So I like Kim as the pick. I just don't like her to score well on DraftKings. I think she's 8,900, and that's going to be pricing her out of my player pool, to be honest with you. So I'll probably X both sides of this fight out of my player pool and hope that Kim wins an 80-point decision. But how do you see this one going down, Monk?
I pretty much agree. The only difference is I don't mind using, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, I don't mind using Mandy Bohm as a punt play this week. We've got, basically a 100% owned guy, in the main event. Which should be pretty close and well-deserved, I should add. And we've got, a couple of decent 9K fighters. My point is, if you're going to roster 2 9K guys, you're going to need some garbage players, as I'll call them. Some 7,300 type of guys down here. You got, Daniel Rodriguez is going to be super hot this week. Everybody's going to be on him. So you're going to have to look elsewhere. The Tim Means, and who's right in between them? Mandy Bohm at 7,300. Jiyeon Kim probably going to win 9K or 8,900. Like you said, she's completely priced herself out. You cannot play her. Girl scores 62 points per win in 3-round, flyweight fights. Now, the only thing is, flyweights, you should target. They are very, very likely to make optimal. I think second best overall for all weight classes, right behind featherweight. So women's flyweight specifically, you should target. And that's the only reason I'm kind of looking at a little more ownership compared to the field for Mandy Bohm. Jiyeon Kim, I might have 0% of her at 8,900. It would be an anomaly if she scored over 80, 90, 100 points and made the optimal lineup. I'm fine with that. I'm not going to put stock in an anomaly, something I think is not going to happen and historically never happened. So give me a little bit of Mandy Bohm at 7,300. Maybe she gets a shitty decision and ends up making the optimal lineup depending on other scores.
Yeah, I would agree. Bohm's going to be the preferred play. And the only reason to use Kim would be because nobody else is using Kim. It's
Yep.
MMA. Anything could happen. Maybe Bohm knees her in the face while she's on the ground in the first round and she gets a first round DQ. Like anything could happen.
Mike
So like if
Jackson,
you're
Dean
making
Barry.
150, that's her path, you know?
Mike Jackson was like the first $6,700 fighter to ever make the optimal lineup because he got dick kicked and eye poked right onto that thing. So you never
Exactly,
know.
man. Anything could happen. So that's why you might want to play Kim, just an easy path to, 100K if that happens, but that's not my style, so I'll be fading her.
Yeah.
Next one on the card, I do like this fight on DraftKings. We got Natan Levy minus 250 against Pete Rodriguez plus 200. And I see this as a striker versus grappler matchup with Levy being the one that wants to get the fight to the ground. Rodriguez looks like a decent striker. He's got power, but he's never been past like the 2.5 minute mark in a fight. These types of guys just don't fare well against UFC competition. And if he's taken down, like Levy's going to want to take him down. I think he has like 3, 6, and 9 takedowns in his last 3 UFC fights. And now he's going against a pure striker. It's a clear, just don't get caught, and you should be able to win this fight. The longer it goes, the more it should favor Levy. So I'm going to go with him. I think this could kind of look like Parker Porter versus Braxton Smith last week, where Pete Rodriguez has a big time puncher's chance early in the fight, but as soon as he's taken down, it might be over soon after. So I don't think the judges will be needed here. If they are, it's probably Levy winning, and he could score well in that scenario as well. So he's my preferred play, but I'll get a little bit of hedge exposure to Rodriguez, because if he wins, he's probably breaking the slate with 100 or more points, and I can't really fade that kind of fighter. So he's going to allow us to get to these fighters we want to talk about later, and that's another reason to use him. But I think Levy's a good pivot from those fighters, and I'll be getting my leverage on Levy. How do you feel about this one, Monk?
Excuse me. Yeah, I completely agree. At 9,100, I love the possible value here with Levy. I mean, you hit it on the head. The guy's had 45 minutes of total UFC cage time, and he's averaging 2.36 points a minute in takedowns and control time put together. That is exactly what we want to see as DraftKings backers. So at 9,100, he's the third or fourth highest priced guy on the slate. I'm gonna have no problem pairing him up with maybe the Almeidas and maybe even just getting him in there and saving money elsewhere. So I like Levy here. Pete Rodriguez, I'm not a huge, I don't know anything about the guy. I was going to say I'm not a huge fan of him, but for the second, I did not think I was going to say Mike Jackson's name twice in this video, but his only win is to possibly one of the worst fighters at welterweight in Mike Jackson. So I think Levy should have him pretty much everywhere. And I love the comp you made to Braxton Smith. If Levy gets Rodriguez, I mean, if Rodriguez doesn't end him immediately, I mean, we've seen this play out time and time again, especially recently across several weight classes. And just like you said, Porter and Smith, if he doesn't get him out of there immediately, Levy's going to take him down, and this shit could go, 15 minutes of hell for Pete Rodriguez, or Levy more likely going to finish it by ground and pound, possibly move to a submission if Rodriguez gives his back up. So I agree. Give me Levy. Love him for DraftKings this week, and I think we could see some value at 9,100.
I agree. All right, next one on the card, we have Cody Stamen minus 165 against Douglas Silva de Andrade plus 135. How do you feel about this one, Monk?
This one's kind of interesting. Immediately I saw this and I wanted to back Douglas Silva de Andrade because he has been so successful recently as far as DraftKings goes. I mean, beat newcomer Pirello, 104, 105 points he put up. Beat UFC vet Morozov, put up 120 points in a second round submission, and lost a very close 3-round fight to who I consider a good fighter in Said Nurmagomedov. So immediately I'm looking at Silva. He's the underdog. 7,700 is a great salary to target. He's also made the optimal lineup 2 out of 4 times. I was going to say both at dog prices. One was 7,200, but the Pirello fight, he was 9,200. Cody Stamen scores okay. 104 on average over his last 2 wins in the weight class. He is, let's see here. Now, of course, I have to scroll all the way over. 83.5 points per win. That's it. So in 3-round, what is this? Bantamweight fights, he's only scoring 83. Andrade is actually outperforming him 91 overall in the weight class. So I like the numbers from Andrade. I think there's some better value on him. That said, he's 37 years old. He is the older fighter by over 4 years to Cody Stamen. Stamen hasn't looked great, but recently he's looked decent, but it's against guys like Luan Lacerda and Eddie Wineland. Douglas Silva de Andrade is not Eddie Wineland, so I'm probably leaning with Andrade for DraftKings. As far as a pick, I think this one's pretty even, but I'm kind of hoping to see Silva de Andrade pull this one out.
Yeah, I don't have a strong lean on this one, but I am going to go with Stamen just because I think he's our more likely minute winner in this one. But for DraftKings, it kind of is going to come down to, does Andrade get the knockout? Because that's what's going to put him on the optimal lineup. And does Stamen wrestle for 3 rounds? Because that's what he's going to have to do to make the optimal lineup. So it's really just 2 paths to the optimal lineup, unless there's a submission on the Stamen side or something like that. But that's how I see it going down, is Stamen can win all 3 rounds with his wrestling. And if he does that, he could score well. But I also think he can win minutes on the feet, and that's just not going to be good for DraftKings. It's just going to be a lot more dangerous for him on the feet as well. That's what puts Andrade in play. So I'll get a little bit of exposure to both sides, but probably 15%, 20% at most. So more of my lineups will be fading this fight, hoping that it's kind of back and forth and Stamen can win a split decision or unanimous decision where he only wrestles for 1 or 2 rounds. So we'll see, but I like the favorite again in that one.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
All right, next one on the card, we have Carl Williams minus 400 against Chase Sherman, plus 310. Last time these guys were scheduled to fight, I had 95% Carl Williams, and he pulled out right after lock. So I don't have a good taste in my mouth, but at the same time, I think he could be a very important play on this slate because he has a big-time wrestling advantage. He scored 130 DraftKings points in his UFC debut by getting, 8 takedowns. He controlled the fight the entire time, and he could do that same exact thing here and score 130 points also and be the highest scorer on the card. But I also think he could go out there and outbox Sherman for 3 rounds and score 70 points in a win. So that would be a worry for me, where we're comparing him to the main event later, Almeida. I'm not as worried about Almeida's game plan because I think he's got one path to win, where Carl can kind of do whatever he wants against Chase Sherman. But for me, it's going to be Williams. And then I'm going to fade Sherman. I just don't really see how Sherman wins this unless he gets a knockout. It's heavyweight. It could happen, but I'll fade that outcome. And I'm going to take Williams to win all 3 rounds with wrestling. But how do you see it going down, Monk?
Yeah, again, I mean, I completely agree here. This is the rematch. Yeah, I was going to say, I think Sherman was the one that pulled out, and I'm sure he pulled out a minute before or before a minute after the fight started. They just chose to report it that way. Probably wasn't soon before that, though. So definitely some bad taste in our mouth here. Deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra said. The only thing that, I mean, you broke it down perfectly. Williams is going to wrestle. Sherman can't stop takedowns. The offensive inside the distance pace for Carl Williams, he put up 6 points a minute versus Lukasz Brzeski. That is really hard to say. Try saying those 3 words 3 times in a row. Sherman has given up in, 14 fights in 3-round heavyweight, 6.19 points a minute inside the distance. That's what he gives up. So give me Carl Williams. I think this is a very straightforward game plan, and I think we would have to see some of the lowest IQ ever displayed to see Carl Williams stand and bang or box or keep at range with Chase Sherman. If he doesn't take this dude down immediately, I'm probably just going to turn the fights off entirely. I mean, Williams controlled 96% of. I think I already said that. It was a ridiculous number, and Sherman is better than Brzeski probably, but I mean, how much better are we talking about here? So give me Williams to win, and I think he's going to score very well. I will have lineups with him and Almeida probably, but you're going to have to get real low on the sheet to make that work. But man, the question is, what's his ownership going to be? If Almeida is going to be as high owned as I thought, is everyone just going to stack Williams and Almeida this week? So you got to think about stuff like that when making your rosters. I want to play Williams, but I'm probably going to have to get away from him a little bit in order to be a little contrarian.
Yeah, I mean, I want Williams or Almeida in almost every lineup I create. I want one of them. Yep. It's going to be hard to get both of them, though. And if you do get both of them, you got to start thinking how you're going to get different because you're going to be dumpster diving along with the same people that everyone else is. So I
D-Rod,
don't
Tim
know.
Means.
Yeah, I just don't know how I'm going to attack those, but that's going to be, that's going to what this slate's going to come down to is which one of those guys ends up on the optimal lineup.
Yep.
If you're MMEing, just take shots on both sides. But yeah, I like them both. They have the highest two ceilings on the card. But we'll get back to it later, I'm sure, once we start talking about Jailton.
I know. You can tell he's one of my favorites because I literally can't stop talking about him.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to love this guy, especially on DraftKings.
Yeah.
All right, next one. We have the old guys. We got Court McGee minus 225 against Matt Brown plus 185. Oh man, I don't love this fight. I think it could be a stinker for DraftKings, but at the same time, I think it has potential for 90 to 100 points and make the optimal lineup if that happens. And for both sides, in Matt Brown's last fight, he got screwed over by the judges, but he still scored, I believe, 59 points in a loss. That's 89 in a win. That's great for an underdog here if he could do that. And then same thing with Court McGee in his last win. That is, it was the most impressive win I've seen in his career, basically. And he scored, I believe, 111 points on DraftKings. Looked amazing, and he can kind of do that same thing here. But it could also turn into a striking match where it's back and forth, and the winner scores 65 points. So I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this one, to be honest with you. How do you see it going down, Monk?
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to watching this one because, obviously, most of us that have been watching for a while kind of have soft spots for Court McGee and for Matt Brown, two guys that have really only been good guys in the sport that we've loved watching at this point for over 10 years, well over 10, probably closer to 15 or 20 in the case of Matt Brown, who, by the way, is there a more appropriate nickname ever in the history of the sport than the immortal Matt Brown? I mean, come on, guy's 42 years old. Court McGee, 38, 80 years combined. So just enjoy this one. For DraftKings, I think it's going to be more of what you said. If somebody's going to have to score 90 or 100 in a win to make the optimal lineup, I think it's probably Brown. But that said, I mean, how long can this dude? There's a chance that every fight now for Brown is his retirement fight. Like, he could take the gloves off after any fight. And as you know, I don't back guys that are retiring. So if I don't know that, I'm going to have to take a guess and just automatically drop some ownership to that side. But the Court McGee side, I just think he's too expensive. Yeah, he scored very well against Ramiz Brahimaj. I don't think Matt Brown's going to bring that type of game at all. Court McGee is more in the range of, let's see here, 90 points per win, which is what I would expect. And at 8,700, that's just not quite high enough for me. So I'm going to pick McGee probably about 85 to 90 points in a win at the high end. And yeah, I mean, if this goes to decision rather, but I want to back Matt Brown because of the price, but man, that 42 years old, how long can this go? So, I mean, like I said, I'm going to drop some of my exposure there and probably just sit back and try to enjoy this one.
Yeah, I think the way I'll attack it is it won't be in my single entry, but if I'm making 20 lineups with the optimizer, I'll let it do its thing. I don't have a strong lean, but I think that Matt Brown will look his best in round 1. And then if anyone slows down, it will be him. So I'll take McGee to win rounds 2 and rounds 3 and score less than 10x. So that's how I see it going down, which is probably why it will not be in my single entry.
I love it. I love that. But yeah, exactly. I think it goes all 3, and we're probably not seeing 10x.
I like it. All right, next one we have Carlos Oberg minus 450 against Ihor Potieria plus 325. Man, I don't like the line at all. I don't like minus 450 Oberg, but I do think this is a striking match. I think he's the better, more powerful, higher paced, better cardio striker. So I got to pick him to win. I think he probably does win by knockout, but he's a pure striker, so he has to win by knockout unless he has the volume he had against Kennedy and Chekwu, but I just wouldn't expect that, especially after seeing him gas out. So I think we get a lower paced Oberg, and at this price, it's going to be knockout or bust for him to compete with Jailton Almeida and Carl Williams and some of these other guys on the card. So I don't think I'm going to be getting to too much Oberg here. And then on the Potieria side, I think he is live for a knockout. He's got power, especially early in fights. And I also think that he could go out there and look to wrestle in this one against a pure striker. So that's why I don't like the line. I wouldn't be betting Oberg's money line here. But if I was going to bet the fight, I think Oberg by TKO would be the route I would take. That's how I see it going down. It probably is in the first round. He probably scores 106 points again like he did in his last 2 fights. It's just maybe 106 points won't be enough on this card. So how do you see it going down?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, you're right about that. He's got about a 10-point higher strength of schedule than Pateria, as you would expect. MMA math is in play here. He KO'd Nicky Gums, and Pateria got KO'd by Nikolai Negomariano. Not that I put much stock into that. I'm just saying that was a thing that happened. I agree. I think this is either Oberg. You have to roster some of him just for that first round knockout ability, and I think that is in play here. That said, I don't think he's going to score 120 some points, but he does score well overall in his first 4 fights, rather 1.6 points a minute, allowing just 1.81. But when he lost, he gave up 113 points, which was huge. If Pateria can get the knockout here, he's going to score very well. And at 6,900, that's a great salary to target. So I agree. I will have Pateria. Also, people hate this guy because he did some celebration after he knocked out Mauricio Shogun Rua. So you're going to be able to get more leverage on him just because dumb people like that think that a celebration, makes it worth not rostering a guy. So I'm of the camp that I hate. I said this on my show and I'll say it here. All these stupid, unspoken, rules, sportsmanship bullshit. Don't talk about people's wives and kids and families. But short of that, if you don't want somebody to celebrate, don't let them knock you out. How about that? We'll try that. Nobody's going to celebrate. He wouldn't have done his fancy little Michael Jackson gun bullshit if he got knocked out by Rua. So don't get knocked out and you won't have these problems. So sorry for a little tangent, but I think we're going to be able to get extra exposure because dumb people don't like this guy and they're not going to roster him. So I agree completely. I'll have both sides of this fight. I think it's a great one to target, and I'd be shocked if it goes the distance.
Yeah, I think Pateria probably gets knocked out and scores basically no points, but he's my preferred play in this one just because if he does win, he has a chance to score very well. He helps us pay up for the Almeidas of the card. So,
and you got to get away from D-Rod. You got to get away from guys like that because everyone's going to roster him.
Yeah, and I would just rather take my chances there. All 4 of the top price guys can score well in a finish, but if they all somehow win a decision, Oberg is scoring the least amount of all of them. So those are the kind of guys that I usually don't get exposure to. I'll probably end up fading Oberg and hoping that this fight just makes it out of the first round. Then I'll feel good about that fade.
For sure.
All right, next one on the card, we have Alex Morono minus 225 against Tim Means plus 180. I expect a striking match here. Both guys have grappling chops, but they are primarily strikers. I expect it to be a 3-round striking match where it could be pretty high paced. Either guy are live for the knockout. But if it goes all 3 rounds, I just think that Means has a better chance than Vegas gives him. And I also think he has an easier path to scoring 10x or more in a decision win. So I'm kind of just leaning Tim Means. I think it's a pretty close fight. One where it could be a split decision on the scorecards and you're really not complaining either way. But I would just always rather have the plus 180 side of that. So Means will be my pick in this one. Not a play I love on DraftKings, but a cheap underdog I'm picking to win. So I will get exposure to him. I will get leverage to him. And I'll be underweight to Morono. I think he's in play for the knockout. Means has a questionable chin. But Morono's been knocked out more than Means has, so I don't know why people aren't saying Morono doesn't have a questionable chin also. So I'm taking the Means side. Give me Means by split decision. Probably scores around 10x and doesn't make the optimal. But I'm looking for underdogs on this card, and he's one of them that I'm picking to win. So I'll take him. How do you see it going down?
Absolutely, man. He's one of my pivots, and I think he's probably going to be maybe not as popular as I'm thinking in my head. But like I said just a second ago, everybody's going to be, in my opinion, Daniel Rodriguez is one of the hottest underdogs on the card just because of the name, his record, and who he is fighting, and the salary that he's at. So you're going to have to pivot off of that. I like Tim Means as a pivot. Great strength of schedule. Other than the age, yeah, I mean, unless Means gets rocked on the feet, I'd think any wrestling or any ground game we see might be purely accidental here. I think I agree with you. We're going to see some striking. Morono's chin, great point, is even just as you said, on paper it's worse than Means, but statistically it's also worse than Means. I mean, he got KO'd by Santiago Ponzinibbio. He was cruising in that fight and then got rocked by an older fighter, which is happening again here. Tim Means, 39 years old. So I'm on the Means side. They're basically, as far as DraftKings scoring goes, historically at the weight class, and we have a ton of fights between these two guys at the weight class, like almost 40 fights between them. They're basically the same guy. In fact, Tim Means outscores Morono by 4 points, but either way, they're both netting less than 90 points per win. Overall, only one optimal in their past 7 fights, and that was Morono. So if you're telling me that, they're basically statistically the same guy as far as DraftKings goes, and now you're telling me one guy's 8,800 and one guy is 7,400, please believe I'm going to be on the $7,400 side. I don't know how I will find spots for Morono this week, maybe a couple, but I'll be well under the field, I imagine, probably like 10%. Something like that. So I'm going to put a big fade on Morono. Also, what terrible nickname. How do you nickname yourself the Great White? You put the Great White is bad enough. Then you put the in there, and now people are trying to figure out what you're actually trying to say. So give me Tim Means. He also has a in his name, but it's the Dirty Bird. Very different than the Great White. So give me Tim Means for the upset. Morono probably wins by decision, but give me Tim Means at 7,400.
I like it. All right, next one on the card, we have Ian Gary minus 300 against Daniel Rodriguez plus 240. This should be a striking match. I would give Rodriguez the wrestling and grappling edge, but he just doesn't look to wrestle or grapple much. But they're both high-paced strikers, and I think Rodriguez's pace will help out Gary's pace as well. They're both live for a knockout, but I do think Gary is the more technical striker with more tools in his striking toolbox. We saw him get knocked down pretty violently in the first round of his last fight. I think that Rodriguez is going to be very in play, as you've mentioned a couple times on this card, because of that knockdown. People are going to have that recency bias. Think that Rodriguez can do the same thing. But even in a decision win, Rodriguez has the volume to score well. So it's hard not to like him. Maybe the ownership will be what sways me off. But I'm picking Gary to win. So if the ownership is high, I just got to tell myself to start looking elsewhere, because I think Gary is the better striker over the course of 3 rounds. And I also think he's going to be the one throwing these shots at angles that Rodriguez doesn't see coming. And those are the ones that knock you out. So I think he's more in play for the knockout as well. I just would rather target grapplers. So Gary is like Oberg to me, where we're relying on an early knockout. He has scored well in decisions because he's a high-paced striker, so I would rather actually target Gary for cheaper, but I would rather the 3 grapplers in that range instead. So that's where I'll be going this week, but give me Gary to win by knockout or more likely decision. How do you see it going down?
No, and I understand that completely. That's a good thought train there, and it makes total sense. I think Gary probably gets it done at 9K, and like you alluded to, both guys, I mean, are very high volume, averaging basically between them 7 strikes a piece per minute landed, not just what they're throwing. So it's, 14 strikes a minute landed on average between them. The scores are not really where you'd expect them to be, especially in the last 5. Rodriguez has 4 wins out of his last 5. 86 points is all he's averaging overall in welterweight fights, though. 3 rounders, 102 is what he is averaging. So about 10 points better than Ian Machado Gary here. No grappling time. Again, this is one that if grappling happens, it will be an accident. Both of them put in less than 20% of their total fight time fighting inside the distance, and both of them control less than 25% of that fight time. So you don't really want to see that. Rodriguez is giving up 2 inches of height, but they have the same reach. Both guys great on the feet, pretty good on the feet. I won't say great, pretty good on the feet. Gary probably quicker, the more up and coming name. I am biased though, because I'm not a huge fan of Conor McGregor, and what's worse than Conor McGregor is guys that try to act exactly like Conor McGregor. So I'm not a huge fan of that. But then it balances out because he took his wife's name for something. So he kind of balances out. He's kind of neutral for me here. I like Rodriguez, but again, how I've said it several times, the ownership is going to be, I think, crazy high. Like this dude could be 40, 50% owned at 7,200. People see the name, they're like, Why is he so cheap? I honestly thought the line was going to narrow when I woke up today, and it's just getting wider every day. And honestly, that's kind of surprising. So I will have some of both sides here. I like Gary at the savings of 9,000 because I think he could be a little bit more expensive than that. But again, if this gets to decision, Rodriguez could easily pay off that very cheap salary. So I'll probably be pretty even on this fight. But I'm going to play the ownership game with Rodriguez. If he's 40%, I'm probably going to go way under to like 25.
Yeah, I would think he's going to be under 40%. But this is a card where everyone's going to want to get up to Almeida and Carl Williams. So the guys that are going to get the low part of that are going to be Daniel Rodriguez and the other prison fighter, Tim Means. So
200-0 in prison and street fights for D-Rod.
Yeah, I mean, both. I might have to have a couple prison lineups with those guys, and then you could go with a Rodriguez stack if you want. There's ways to get interesting here.
Get crazy with it.
We'll see, but I'll take Gary to win a decision and not make the optimal lineup.
Love it.
All right, we have next one on the card. All right, Anthony Smith -115 against Johnny Walker -105. It's hard to have a strong lean in this one, but it's probably an important fight for DraftKings. I think that Walker's kind of a knockout or bust in my opinion, but that knockout is what puts him in play because it probably would come early in the fight. If it's in round 1, he's on the optimal lineup at 8,200. And then if he doesn't get the knockout, I think Smith is the better all-around striker, higher volume striker, and I think he's got a big edge on the mat if he can get it there. So I like the minute winner and Anthony Smith in this one. I think he does get it to the ground and eventually finds a submission or wins a decision. So he's my preferred play. I definitely want to take shots on both sides, but I think Walker will be the higher owned one. So I'll go underweight to Walker, overweight to Smith in this one. But I do think it'll be popular, an important fight because they both have 100-point upside. But who are you picking in this one, Monk?
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, I'm going to choose, we had Drew Dober last week, Omaha guy. Now we got Anthony Smith, another Omaha guy. So hopefully they don't go 0-2. I'm on the Smith side as well. I think he gets hated on, and I'm not really sure why. So that'll automatically drop his exposure. Johnny Walker will probably be too high owned, in my opinion. Like you said, knockout or bust. Both guys, surprisingly, in their last 5 fights, scored 2 points a minute. That is some of the lowest on the entire card. Both guys score an average of about 106.5, 107 points in each of their 3 wins. Both guys give up not a ton of points when they lose, less than 100. Both guys with average 13. This is a very similar fight. And again, it's not necessarily Morono and Tim Means type similar as far as salaries go, but we definitely have a favorite and a dog here. So I'm going to be on the dog side, 8,000. I'm right there with you. Maybe a little biased, like I said, guy from Omaha and Anthony Smith. But if he doesn't get KO'd in the first round, I think he's got a real chance. Like I said, people hate on this guy, and I'm not really sure why. He's a decent fighter, in my opinion, a very good fighter. I really like watching the guy fight. Like I said, I'm very biased. But we've seen Walker handled before by strikers. I mean, made to look absolutely foolish. Who can forget the arm flailing knockout that was put on him by Jamal Hill? Like, it looked like he hit him right in the forehead or something. Like, I don't even know. But he's lost to Thiago Santos before that. That is not a good loss. As they say, it has aged very poorly. But then he beats Kutalaba and then Paul Craig. So he's working his way back. I think Smith is a huge step up, though. And I think we can find some leverage here with Smith. Hopefully he can score well. Maybe it'll finish win. If it does go to decision, though, maybe he's the one that lands a trip or a takedown and just and racks up some control time as well to help the cause. But I'll probably be over on Smith and under on Walker, just like you.
I dig it. And yeah, in that 5-round loss to Thiago Santos, he scored 19 points. So even if he won, that's 49 points, and it doesn't do you any good. So I'm not big on these knockout or bust fighters, but that knockout's what's going to put them on the optimal lineup. So I'm seeing myself maybe 40% Smith, 20% Walker, 25% Walker, something like that.
I love that.
But I think the ownership will be kind of flipped where the field will be more so on that knockout side.
100%.
All right, speaking of knockout or bust fighters, we have the main event. We got Jailton Almeida -500 against Jairzinho Rozenstruik +360. This is a knockout for Rozenstruik or a ground mauling for Almeida. I know who you're going to pick, but how do you see it going down? And give me some numbers on this fight.
Yeah, again, that's why I have all these. That's why I started these spreadsheets in the first place, man, to take my bias out of it because I just can't remove it on my own. It's completely impossible. It is knockout. I mean, Rozenstruik in his last 5, guys. Oof, it is rough. 1.36 points a minute. This guy, I mean, that's well lower than Derek Lewis. But pair that when he does win, 119 points a win. So he's literally landing like one strike and getting the KO early, and that's how he's scoring very well. So outside of that, you take that out, he doesn't do anything at all. In fact, let's see. Against Volkov, he scored 2.4. I mean, that was a first-round KO. Against Blades, here we go. This is better. Against Blades, 3-round decision. He scored, Rozenstruik, 12.8 points. So that's even less than who we just mentioned before that went 5 rounds and scored however many points. I forget what we said. Cyril Gahn, 5-round decision loss for Rozenstruik, scored 18 points. So yeah, very, very low. I mean, stats though. I'm a stat boy. Almeida's got the great. He is the number 1. Well, technically, Mavzar has outscored him in the past 4 fights by 1.07 points total in those 4 fights. So Mavzar Evloev is technically the number 1 DraftKings player right now, but Almeida, 4 UFC fights, 100% win rate, 4 times optimal, made the optimal lineup at 9,700 like it was no freaking problem. I, in fact, told people that I wanted to play him, but probably wouldn't play him as much as I wanted because he was so expensive. And then he smashed everything against Shamil Abdurakhimov. So now I'm probably going to roster him 90 to 100%, and hopefully he doesn't shit the bed. But man, there's not many things I enjoy more than watching Yelton Almeida fight. Rozenstruik's got one path, and it's a very early KO victory. Again, I'm not going to say it's as big of an anomaly as Ji Young Kim making the optimal lineup when she averages 60 points a win. But in my opinion, Rozenstruik landing that shot would be kind of an anomaly at this point, maybe like 2 steps above anomaly. So not quite, super, rare, but just kind of rare. I'm thinking Almeida crushes here. He's going to be in so many of my lineups. It's not even going to be funny. Much like Mavzar last week, I consider this basically a free square. Unfortunately, he's 9,600, so you're going to have to balance that out. But still, he's $100 cheaper than he was last time.
Yeah, I mean, we don't like the $9,600 price tag, but
True.
Almeida's path to victory is getting the fight to the ground early and keeping it there, and he's going to score well if he gets the win. So I don't know how we get off of it on a fight that has minus 1,000. Fight doesn't go the distance line. And
I think it was like minus 200 under 1.5.
Yeah, so it's hard. Even 9,600, like he's the guy who's going to pay it off. I just don't think he's going to go out there and test his striking in this matchup.
He shouldn't.
If the takedowns are failing, it probably means he's going to get knocked out, and that is what is going to put Rozenstruik in play. But I'll probably be like 90% Almeida, 10% Rozenstruik, because I think he gets a takedown early and finishes him with a TKO or a submission on the ground in the first round. But we're not going to need the judges in this one. This will be an important fight. If Rozenstruik gets the first round knockout, he's on the optimal for sure. Yep. He won't even. It's a main event. He won't even get main event ownership in this one. He'll probably be 10 to 15% owned. So it's Almeida. And if you want to be different, man, it's just because that $9,600 price tag has not treated us well in the past. Maybe he goes out there, gets one takedown. Rozenstruik gives up his back. He gets a rear naked choke. Yep. He scores 99 points, and that isn't on the optimal lineup. I think that's what you're rooting for. He finishes the fight like not in the 60-second bonus, but like right afterwards and just doesn't quite get there.
Yep.
But, man, I want as much as I can afford. It's going to be him and Williams are my core plays. That's what I'm going to build around this week. I'll start with one of them, or I don't know. We'll see. I probably have them both in my single entry right now. But I just don't like doing that because I feel like everyone is going to do it. So
right.
I might just try and take my chances with one or the other and just see how it works. But I'll be building over there on DFSArmy.com on the Domination Station Optimizer. Sign up if you haven't yet. Use promo code Sleeveless. Save 10% every month. But I think this is a good card if you don't want to use your biasness and use 100% Almeida because the field will have 60% as well. let the optimizer get different for you. So that might be my plan. I'll make a single entry where Almeida's very likely to be on it. But with my other 19, I'm cool getting a little bit different if that's what it's going to take for me to possibly win 100K or whatever the top prize is of the tournament that I'm playing. But yeah, target this fight heavily. Should be a very good one. You have anything else you want to add on this fight?
I was going to say, it is going to take a little bit to get different. Everyone's going to be on Almeida. Then it's going to be Carl Williams. So even if you pivot, you're going to have to pivot below Carl Williams. Everyone's going to be on D-Rod, in my opinion. Tim Means will probably be popular. You're going to have to get interesting with your dogs. I think you can go super chalky up top. I think the dogs this week is where it's really going to pay off. Like we said, 6,900 could be in play. Everyone's going to be on Johnny Walker. Like there's 4 people are going to start with Almeida, Williams, Walker, and D-Rod. I guarantee that's going to be 60% of people's lineups this week. So take that with what you will and just try to get different. But, man, you can't get that different when it comes to Almeida or guys like Williams, most likely.
Exactly. I feel that. All right, to end each podcast, we like to give out a kill shot, somebody we think will be lower owned. And lately, we've been doing only underdogs. It's a tough week for it. Do you have somebody in mind, Monk? I'll let you go first so I don't steal it.
Who? Give me just 1 second. Yeah, it's going to be rough. I was trying to look at this the other day. Man, there's basically 2, and I'll give you the third, which I really don't like. This will probably, when we get official for our picks in the chat, this will probably change. But for the show, very low owned. No one's looking at this guy, Ihor Poteria. I think he's got an okay shot at really paying off a very cheap salary. So, I mean, there's 2 other choices that I've talked about already that are very obvious, and I'm just trying to get away from that and give you somebody else I think has an okay chance of winning in Ihor Poteria.
I like it. And he'll probably be around 10% on, so it's a legit kill shot.
Yeah.
Unlike mine will be fairly popular. I'll take Tim Means to go out there. I think he can win a decision. I think he's live to win by knockout or a submission as well. So give me Tim Means. And he has 70 to 100-point range. Hopefully it ends up closer to the 100-point for my sake. But
me too. I'll have a lot of them.
We will see, but good luck to you this week, Monk.
Likewise.
Good luck to everybody listening. You want to plug anything before we hop off here, Monk?
Just check out, I got my game theory video where I break down all 12 or 13 fights, however many it was, from a DraftKings perspective. So if you like stats and Street Fighter music, go ahead and check that out on the MonkMMAtics channel on YouTube. Other than that, it's a happy hour with Lou Betty on the MMA Engine. And that'll be about it, man. Looking forward to this card. Like I said, next week it gets a little hairy, so just try to enjoy this card. Also, get your stuff in early this week. DFS lineups, bets, any picks, whatever you do, get it in early. This is an early morning card. I think it's 10:30 Central, 11:30 Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. So this is not a 3 or 4 or 5 p.m. start time.
That's right. I forgot about that. I knew that originally, but I forgot since then, so I'm glad you mentioned that. I appreciate it. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at BigMarley3. I cap every fight. I give out my official bets at BigMarleyMMA.com. And then, of course, DFS Army. Go sign up. Promo code Monk, promo code Sleeveless. Save you 10% off every month. All sports are included. So good luck to you, Monk. Good luck to everybody listening. Go out there and win something. See you guys.